Hello and welcome back to my channel. We rejoin the characters on a cold, windy, wet day in Dunmorna. They have experienced a number of negative dice rolls, I would call them. The fate of the gods have been uh, against them. The last debacle has ended up with finding the characters at the bottom of a chute in a dishevelled manner, taken some minor wounds and scratches. And to top it all, having ended up on level 2, they have encountered some of this variety of creature. Our good old dwarves, 8 of them, the 8 dwarves of Dunmorna. Who are they? What are they doing? What is their intention? We're going to find out in this episode. Before we embark on that exciting prospect, I would quite like to just mention the fact that, I've got a bit of an announcement. I've reached 500 subscribers. Hooray! I can't believe it. I'm absolutely delighted. I'm very flattered, and I'm very pleased that I've been able to act as a bit of an ambassador for this great game. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last couple of months producing these things and doing them on quite a regular basis. My wife says you've got to slow down the pace. You can't spend your entire retirement doing this. But unfortunately, I'm like a lot of men. We just have this obsessive quality to us that if we start getting interested in something, it becomes a kind of our passion. And I think it's just quite comparable to how I used to feel about the game back when I was a young 14-year-old, a young level 5, level 6, level 5 fighter cleric magic user, and still experiencing the thrill of having a wand of fireballs and be able to, and then the worry that how many charges have you got left, and will you be able to defeat the horde of goblins descending on you in your usual napalm manner. It's that kind of charge thrill that's come back. So I'm actually, it's a two-way street. This, hopefully I'm providing you with a bit of entertainment and enlightenment on the rules, and also just how I play the game. But at the same time, I'm getting a lot of enjoyment back from certainly a lot of the comments that come back. They're very, very nice. I like to interact with them, and also just playing the game. It's great fun and talking about it. Okay, and on the actual, I was looking back at some of the earlier videos and on the evolution of it, and I'm glad to say that I haven't really changed my style very much, and I'll continue in that same vein. One thing I did know, there was a paradigm shift that I had at the start. It was almost like a eureka moment, which I've never really articulated. But if you cast your mind back to our first, I think the second video where I was doing the town, the setting, and we came up with Marchton, and I said, "Oh, here's my town of Freehold. Wouldn't it be a good idea if I created one? We could do one together." And thereafter, I don't think I've ever turned back, because I kind of ditched my campaign. I think I showed you a few brief player characters and gave you some ideas what I'd done. And I kind of got completely bought in to doing almost like an interactive game with the audience, with the subscribers. And hopefully that's how it feels. It's like it's been a journey that we've kind of done together. And that's certainly the way I feel about it. That it's almost like I feel like I'm playing with people, and hopefully when you're watching it, you feel like you're participating a bit in it, because just this, it's almost like the pace it goes at, and the way I'm I'm trying to talk about things. It's almost as if I'm trying to bounce ideas. I'm bouncing ideas off myself, but it's almost as if I was having a conversation. And I've just been, I think, I've done this kind of unconsciously, but I think I've had a few comments back saying they like that kind of style. So I'm really pleased that is that you're finding that entertaining. And maybe when I go off on tangents and stuff, that's when you can kind of forgive me a bit and let me indulge my little rambles. Also, I'd like to say that I think I've taken you as far as I can on this journey with what I would call my modifications. They're not really new rules. They're just really kind of, as I say, solo-friendly modifications. And I think I've reached the end of that stage now. So you're probably, sigh of relief. You're not going to get any more of these, sitting in, get your textbook out, boys. Pens and pencils ready. Sorry, boys and girls. Get your pens and pencils ready. Take some notes. There's been a bit of kind of the classroom lecturer type style and things. That's probably, I think I've reached the end of the end of the road on that. I've shown you just about every single mechanic that I can do, and it's really all. I'm handing it over to gameplay going forward, and that would mean more dungeons, more places of mystery, also outdoor adventures. I want to get majored on that. I think that's a big part of the campaign. I've always been thoroughly immersed in outdoor wilderness adventuring and exploring strange new lands that people have not, maybe civilized people, humans or elves or dwarves have not ever walked through. And then town city adventures too, because I think they're maybe the more that's probably one of the most sophisticated manifestations of advanced Dungeons and Dragons are city adventures, where you have a real it's a real kind of dynamic mix of different NPCs and motivations and plot lines, and it's a very complex environment. Whereas it tends to be a bit more binary in a dungeon, where you just have an encounter, and they're either hostile or they're not. Whereas in a city, there's all sorts of things going on, and that's part of its charm. So I think we are at a stage where I've gone through that type of information, and we can move on to where the characters are now. So if we get out our sheet, we'd gone down to level 2 on in the palace, and the characters had been on level 0. They'd gone up the staircase. They'd found a false floor. Unwittingly found it. They came cascading down this chute 2 levels, down to the depths of level 2. Whoa, it's kind of scary stuff. They had the unfortunate roll of on the periodic check of a wandering monster. I subsequently defined that it was a 60-foot corridor for us. Just reflecting on the shoot and the fall and all that type of stuff, I thought maybe I was being a bit harsh on the characters, because if we get our little avatars out, get them into action again. I thought maybe when they're shooting down this chute, maybe it was a bit harsh to apply a damage to them. However, I'm going to maintain that rule, because I think very much of the view that if I've done something, it would have to be something very seismic for me to go back and redo it. I think I can maybe square it up with the characters by saying, when they get to the bottom of this chute, instead of being disheveled and whatever and on the back foot, they maybe have some time to compose themselves. You know, Dagobert has had the lantern, maybe it's been extinguished, he has a chance to maybe light it again. They're kind of like shaking themselves down. You know, Lindros is in a good position because he's emerged unscathed. We can almost assume that he is acting as in the role of, you know, come on guys, are you okay? You know, well, Dagobert, you look as though you've, you know, a couple of grazes to your head. Tristan, are you fine? You've already been a bit hurt. You know, your sprain okay? And he can sort of act as a kind of guardian for them while they get themselves composed and ready, and then we trigger the wandering monster thing. So I think that maybe just equals up the chances. And on the dwarves, I thought that they, you know, I was looking up their improvision, and that really just detects heat sources. So in a cold, damp dungeon, I would assume they still need a light source to differentiate. You know, because if it's all the same heat, you say it's a low heat, because there's no living things. It's all, you know, they're not going to see anything with their infravision, so they still need a light source. So I would posit the fact that they would be approaching with either torches or a lantern, and likewise the characters have got a lantern. So there's going to be a case where they're going to be on an equal footing here. So in order to execute that encounter, I think it just boils down to a simple surprise check, and then we can get cracking with our and I've got my little counters out. I've got the 8 dwarves of Dunmorna, and I looked up my formula for calculating numbers appearing, and it should have been on level 2. It should be twice. So remember, we had a cap of 6 because we had 3 level 1 characters times 3, so that's 3, and it's a factor of 2. So on level 1 it's always 6 maximum encountered. On level 2 it's doubled, so it should have been 12. But remember, we rolled 8, so I'm not in the doghouse again on that one. So we've got a nice little dwarf phalanx. You know, we get them organized into this. Maybe they do this kind of formation, which is, you know, got the leader at the front with his main man approaching. And I think with dwarves, this sex check is maybe a bit irrelevant because I think the dwarf women have beards too, so you probably can't really you know, tell the difference. Okay, right. Let's just get rid of these just now, and we'll do a surprise check for our characters and the dwarves. So we traditionally have used the, I'll get my other coloured dice. We'll use a white for the White of Bane, and black for the Black Mountain Dwarves. Maybe, you know, we don't know. So this could be an important role for the characters. You know, I suppose we have. This is the first time we've had an encounter with an intelligent monster. Now, I use the term monster. I don't use that in a derogatory fashion. That's just the encompassing term for anything that appears in the monster manual, and men are in that too. So I don't take it the wrong way. So not so clever. That means that yes, the party is surprised. The dwarves are not surprised, and not only that, they have 2 surprise segments to deal with us. Okay, so we're immediately on the back foot. So we have been surprised. Now, if there is surprise, let's just get our book out. If there is surprise, we just consult the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide and just see on the distance that we would have. On distance, It says surprise can only be a factor in close encounter situations. If either or both parties are surprised, the distance must be either 1 to 3 inches, or it must be determined as under actual area modifier. Yes, so if it was in a 40 by 60 room, if surprise exists, the distance, yeah. So one is going to be 1 to 3, so that's going to be 10 to 30 feet that we have surprise. So let's see, we're here, our characters are here at the bottom of the chute, composing themselves, getting themselves ready. The dwarves must be walking up this passage. So we will do, they've already got up to here. We'll determine what, how close they're going to be. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll continue with the black dice, and they are here. That's where the dwarves are, in 20 feet away. Okay, now for the dwarves, I am going to apply. This is what I do for for any intelligent creatures, that I still want to have like a random feel to the encounter, but also introduce have some believable kind of almost fantasy orientated motivations. So I don't want them just suddenly to say, all right, fight or run, or just some very binary things. I want them to almost to have a little backstory. So I quickly came up with some, this didn't take me very long to do. This was if we actually think about the dwarves, I'll just do a quick summary. So let's have a think about these dwarves. Now we know there's 8 of them, and they are 1 hit dice monsters. Okay, now their alignment, according to the monster manual, let's see what, apart from the mistake, remember the mistake I noticed the other day? That wasn't too clever, was it? Their alignment is lawful good. So this is probably just the general alignment is lawful good. Special attacks, see below. I can't remember. Oh yeah, they do against goblinoid types. They have a special bonus, and their defenses. They have good saving throws for things like what was it? Their magic. Certain types of magic. They're quite resistant to magic, dwarves. They are civilized creatures. They have a rather dour outlook to life. But I wouldn't say they could be quite adversarial to some of the members of our party. They don't have a very good track record when it comes to elves, and maybe by default half-elves. There's nothing else there that I need to take account of until we actually get down to the encounter itself. Things like what they're armed with and whatever. I had a view that there's a distinction between mountain and hill dwarves. And I thought, well, I'll roll a percentage for that, with the bias down towards hill dwarves, because hill dwarves are slightly bigger. They they live in the mountains, whereas the hill dwarves they live in rocky hills around here. And I thought, well, there's more of a kind of a mountainous area in our region, so let's use that as our decider. So I thought a 65% chance these are going to be mountain, otherwise they're going to be hill dwarves. So 55, so they are mountain dwarves. So I think in the monster manual they're slightly taller, mountain dwarves. And in our game world, they're probably going, because when you think of it, they're not going to be residents of this dungeon. This place is a place of evil. It's a lawful evil palace that was owned by one of the most powerful lawful evil magic users in the old empire. They're not going to feel comfortable living here, even if they stray into the realms of lawful neutral. Again, they would be very much against lawful evil, and almost see it as an ideological enemy. So these are the mountain ranges that we would, if we were going to randomly calculate where they come from. And this is when I'll show you what the 4 options are, whether this backstory is a thing. And the reason I'm going to town on this is because it might shape their behaviour, and their reaction to us in the first place. There's a good chance they come from one of these, and we just randomly determine that. And it also gives us the option of, this is what happens every time you have an encounter with probably more civilized, say humanoids, like we run into some orcs. They're either going to be living in a complex in the actual in the dungeon itself, or they might be a nearby tribe, and then suddenly we've got the opportunity of populating an orc tribe somewhere in the region. So that's how we almost like populate, without going in and exploring Sub-Hex, how we can populate some other population centres of non-humans. So we've got mountain dwarves. Now the 4 options that I was talking about, we would have option 1, which would be they are scouting. They're a scouting party, or they're exploring for their clan, their lord, their king. Okay, so that'll be option 1. They're down here doing that. Option 2, the motivation, they're looking for a specific artifact, a specific item or artifact. Number 3, they are after an enemy. It could be like orcs or something like that, a specific enemy, or they are adventuring for loot, for plunder. Okay, and then 4, this is more diverse. They are escaping a level 2 monster. They are lost, stranded, survivors. Okay, so that's going to be my 4 options, and I can assure you that only took me a few seconds to do, and I do that as my little, it's one of my favorite little mechanics that I have, which is just off the cuff. If there's any kind of you just want to create a little bit of color and maybe a bit of logical backstory to why these dwarves are wandering around in the first place, or any other monster that we come across, do the 4 option trick and then select one with a d4, and that's what I'm. It's as simple as that, and you suddenly get a nice little story that you've maybe got a bit of shaping in, because this is going to be quite nice to have one of these things happen. All of them have opportunities for adventure and an interesting interaction, and they would shape the dynamic of what in different ways, shape the dynamic of what the characters and the dwarves are both after. So I suggest that we do a d4, and let's see what happens. So I'll just take my new little list over to one side and get my dice tray in and use my new d4. So it's the top number on this that we do it. So we have option 3. So right, okay, so that's after an enemy, adventuring for plunder. So we've got a binary choice there. So we'll do 1 to 3 after enemy. So they're just adventurers. They're adventuring for plunder. Okay. So that's the motivation. So the dwarves have the jump on us with two segments. So I would say let's just roll an initial just to get a feel for what the dwarves think about us. And then we can maybe do it an interaction. So this is just a very high level reaction. And it's before we've had any form of conversation. And this is just based on what their instinctive feel is about our characters. So we'll get our reaction table out. And we don't have any, I won't have any charisma modifiers or anything like that, because Dagobert isn't being asked to, he's not being spoken to in this. This is just purely a gut reaction of what these monsters feel, what these dwarves feel. I keep calling them monsters, let's call them dwarves. What these dwarves feel when they come into torchlight range and suddenly are confronted by the R3 player characters. So the factors that we'd be having involved there would be, there's definitely going to be a ratio. And if we look at the player's handbook on race, we have got our party is composed of 3 races or variants on race. And if we look at this shows you where is the racial preferences table. So this comes into use for, you know, it's not a human on human, this is an actual interracial encounter. So dwarves, they have antipathy to elves, not good. They're neutral to half elves, and they're neutral to humans. Okay, so there's maybe going to be an impact of suddenly seeing an elf as part of the party, and there might be an initial shock. So, but with the half elf and the humans, they're neutral. And on the when it comes to the modifier for that, we look at this liege column here, and antipathy is -5% and neutral 0%. So I would say that overall it's only going to be very minor amount. It's hardly even worth considering. The overwhelming thing is going to be the fact that they're going to be neutral. So I would say we could be harsh and say -5%, but let's just go with 0% on their high level racial roll. We can't do alignment yet because no one really knows what alignment is. Although you could say that you know, if they were lawful evil or whatever, they would immediately think, oh no, these are adventurers, they're probably going to be, you know, good or neutral or something, so we don't really like them too much. But they're not, they're lawful good, or at least, you know, worst lawful neutral. I would say there's no alignment difference at all. So I think we're just really doing a straight roll, and as I say, the point of this roll is really just to get a gut feel of where they stand, and whether they take immediate action and start piling in with their short swords or not. So let's do the reaction roll here. So we get 46 with no modifiers, neutral, uninterested, uncertain. So we'll do our famous 1 to 2, it's neutral, 3 to 4, it's uninterested, 5 to 6, uncertain. So so it is uninterested. So you might think, oh, that's a strange reaction. You know, these dwarves have just been wandering up the corridor. They see three. They see you know. In fact, that's what they could say. You know, they're heading up the corridor. In fact, let's just put this out on a piece of paper. We can do that now because we know what the scale is. We'll get our little battle map out. We've got our characters at the bottom of the chute. They're up here, get themselves composed. We've got these dwarves. They're probably here. They're coming up 3 abreast. maybe the leaders in the front. Let's see, put them back a bit. The leaders in the front. There's a torchbearer in the second row. That's their formation. That looks really quite nice and militaristic and impressive. We'll put the divider. That's the side of the corridor on that side, and then it's the same on the other side. Can I do a little trick and get this out because it's a bit confusing. It didn't quite work, did it? Let's put our little men back again. Shaky hands. Okay. So the leader of the dwarf says, what does a man, an elf, and a half-elf, what business do they have down here? And they have a bit of an uncertain view of them. So we've got suspicious, wary, dubious, guarded, unsettled, unsure. So let's go with suspicious. So the dwarves are really, the dwarf leader is suspicious. So I would say it's kind of over to Dagobert to say, he'll take the leadership role, and he'll say, basically, hello, hail dwarf chief. My name is Dagobert. I am a cleric of Bane. We are adventurers, and we have had a misfortune of coming down this chute and ending up in the deeps of this evil catacomb. Is there any way that you could give us assistance and help us free ourselves from this terrible place? And we didn't mean to come here, and it's just been circumstances that forced us into this situation. So I think that's probably worthy of, because we've had a bit of an interaction now, and the dwarves have been able to maybe acclimatize themselves to the situation and what we are. We've got enough information to feed into maybe a reaction role on the part of what the leader of the dwarves thinks to this. Anyway, they're basically being asked to help our player characters and not do anything else. And if it's a negative role, they might say, we're kind of interested in some of the gear you've got. If you can hand over something, we'll maybe help you out. And also, they where have they come from? It would be interesting to find out what their backstory is. They are adventurers and they're looking for plunder. So they, where they come from? It'd be interesting to see, in a bit more detail. Okay, right. Well, in that case, I think we can do a more refined reaction roll. And to do that, I'll get my sheet of paper out again. Which is gone walkabouts. I had it, but it's gone. Oh, here we go. Yes, a sheet of paper. So we'll have a racial, which is +0. We have Dagobert. His reaction bonus is +5. We don't have any alignment differences. They're lawful good, and we're lawful neutral. Anything else? Social class isn't going to be a factor. There's no special factors, I don't think, in this situation. I think we've already, they do have the edge when you think of it. They could rush us and take us and whatever. And something maybe about that reaction, kind of, if it'd been a hostile initial reaction, I probably would have said the dwarves would have just charged us and almost capture us, say. If it had been a very friendly one, maybe that's a different story. But because they're kind of suspicious and wary, I think we've got to get into a negotiation situation and just see where the parties land on that. Anything else that I can think of? No, I think we'll just do the roll with the +5 and see what happens. And pray that Dagobert can, with his influential clerical preaching skills, provides the necessary impetus to a positive outcome in the reaction. And I'll just get my table here, so it's to hand, and we will get the percentage dice in view, and we will take a roll and add 5% to this. So 44, so that's going to be 49. So it's still neutral, uninterested, uncertain. So have we got any variations on the theme? Roll a d6 again. We get a 5, uncertain this time. Or was it uncertain last time? It was uncertain last time. So let's see if we've got any improvement on our graph. So this is one of these, a bit of the awkward encounter that everybody's kind of shuffling their feet and looking downwards. Nobody's making eye contact because no one's quite sure. They can't really gauge. They've got sufficient numbers maybe to take us, but they don't really know anything about us. The fact that this elf has got a super weapon or anything. They don't know anything like that. There's always the risk in these situations that on the face of it, people look as though they're going to be a soft touch and be able to knock them over, but actually they can turn out to be as hard as nails, and really give you a bit of a bloody nose. So overconfidence for any adventurer is not a good thing. Maybe when you're in the Green Dragon Inn and you're jumping around on tables and carousing with the bar staff, but not when you're in a dungeon. So uncertain. So we've still got the suspicious, wary, dubious, guarded, unsettled. So again, I would say that they're still a bit wary. And he says, well, tell me why. This is what the dwarf says. He says, tell me why we should help you. And by this stage, they've probably moved further up, and they're almost within a blow range. They just continued with their advance. They're bristling with weapons. Have all their kind of short bows and their battle axes, and they're glinting in the light. And our characters are thinking, this could be a bit hairy. And they say, well, we are, as I say, we are adventurers. We've been trying to penetrate level 1. Unfortunately, we ended up down on, I presume this is 2nd level, and the dwarves say yes, this is we're on the 2nd level too. And Dagobert says, well, is there any chance that you can help us? We don't want to stay down here. We don't want to come into your territory. And he says, well, this is not our territory. I am Thusnau, son of Thringat. We are a party of, we've come here to take its plunder. We've heard of this bastion of evil. It was, in the old days, it had an evil sorceress, Callistra, and our king had a particular dislike of this evil witch, enchantress, and we want to come and basically take what she has plundered from these lands, and reunite the gold that was taken from this particular region back to its rightful owners, my lord and master, the king. So the characters say, look, we don't want to sort of stand in your toes here. all we'll do is if you let us go, we'll just try and climb back up this chute, and I think the dwarves are probably realizing that we don't really pose a threat. They aren't hostile. They aren't friendly. They are just very neutral and gruff. Maybe they are tired. They've had a lot of they've had a lot of hard adventuring back down that passage. And remember, this is second level, so they could be involved in a lot of scuffles with other rather malevolent creatures on this level. Maybe they are looking to get out of the dungeon too, and we might be able to come to some sort of agreement. So Dagobert says, look, if you help us get back onto the level above, up the chute, we will show you our map of some of the areas in this dungeon, and the dwarves seem to be a bit more appealing to that. So let's just roll, based on that offer, let's just see what and see if we can get these negotiations started, because we really seem to be kind of stalled in this perpetual I don't really quite know what I'm doing here. So we have a 75 plus 5, so that's an 80. That does sound implicitly a bit better, and like this dwarf who's called Thuznal, the dwarf leader, is going to take us up on our offer, especially with the idea that he's going to get benefit out of it, and they're probably ready to get out as well, because they've been maybe slaving away down here for a while. Remember, they don't really appreciate the the same, the passing of the days, maybe the same as humans do. The fact that it's kind of morning, it doesn't really affect them. So we had 80. Yes, it's friendly, immediate action. And on our master reaction thing, let's just because we so rarely get friendly. We've got things like kind, affable, helpful, conciliatory, interested, offers information. In fact, maybe they're just really quite happy with the idea, and they just say, right, okay, this chute should be within our domain to get up. Tristan said, well, I was already thinking of maybe I could climb up with my rope and hang it back down again. If you just jump outside the characters for a minute, if you think about it, the situation with the chute, it's not going to be a vertical chute. It's probably just going to be on quite a steep angle. It's probably going to be quite possible for someone to clamber up. That's skilled in climbing. So I was expecting maybe Tristan to be able to climb up and with a rope, dangle it back down again, and the other characters could just pull themselves up. Now the other dwarves, they might be quite good at that too, because they maybe got within them, they've got one of them as a thief or other. But let they say, right, okay, as part of this deal for us helping you and maybe protecting you in the circumstance, because I can tell you there's a lot of things going on further down that corridor that you don't want to be in. We've had a few close runs, and we're quite tantalized by this information. They say, well, why don't you, whoever, half elf, you do the business, go up and climb up and then throw a rope down, and then we can all benefit from your skills. So Tristan says, okay. Now to do this, I would say it's a smooth thing. I think it was every 24 feet. Let's just get the table just to make sure that we're dealing with the right stuff, and we do it on the interval, and it's a 60-foot drop. So we're dealing with 60 foot. Here we go. Now the different types, fairly rough. It's rough and with ledges. Well, maybe not rough with ledges. So let's say we go for every 20 feet. So Tristan has to make 3 free rolls. Fair enough. And what he's going to do, he's going to take some preventive action. He's going to, every 20 feet, and he's going to make it, he'll knock a stake in. And we do have about 5 stakes left, so we've got plenty in our kit bag. So first one, 85%. We'll get our little thing out. He's going up the chute, so we'll do it on 20. 20, and it'll be in the midpoint. So it's, yeah, it must be there, and just to get over the top of it, up onto the top. So it could be right at the top and then fail, but it's only going to slide down another 20 feet. So you'll get there in the end, but it might take some time. So the first one, 69, yep, gets up. The second one, 54, yep. So he's almost at the top. They're going, come on, Tristan, you can do it. He gets a 07. Oh, 17. Yes, and he does it quite easily. So he says, I'm getting used to this. I'm getting quite good at this. So he dangles the rope down. They maybe have to jump up a bit, and they maybe have to push a few dwarves up to get to the rope, which is only a 50-foot rope, you know, going down at. And Tristan's at the top. He's very strong. He's like giving it, you know, pulling them, that type of stuff. He's urging them up. He's saying, come on. So all the party, including the dwarves, go up to the top of the chute. Okay, so now I would say, if we are analysing that particular reaction, and I think, you know, sometimes, you know, you can sit back and think, all right, well, I wonder how that reaction went, and it doesn't always go like clockwork. And you think, oh yeah, that was a great reaction. We had this, you know. I think that's a case in point where it was on the borderline, and it was in a kind of grey area where the characters had to put forward a proposition. In the end, they were given a bit of grace at the start. You know, I'll give you that. The initial reaction of the dwarfs was quite neutral. If it had been hostile, I think we would be in a different situation, because they could potentially be captives. They could even be taken back to the dwarf kingdom, their clan stronghold in the Black Mountains. It could be that bad. But however, what they've done is be able to get out of this situation, use a bit of negotiation. We've had a lucky roll at the end, which has kind of pushed us into the, you know, these dwarves aren't going to attack us now. They're going to be, maybe not allies, but they are going to be our friends for this adventure, and they're not going to cause us any trouble. So the assumption is that when we get to the top of the chute, and we've all kind of dusted ourselves down and we've got kind of recomposed ourselves, our characters will probably be able to just give a bit of information about the place, and then we'll part our ways, and then the dwarves will head off, and what that will leave us with is the fact that we've come across, the first time we've come across dwarves in this game world. We've got a name we can play with. We've got the existence of a dwarf settlement somewhere. Now we've just assumed it's these Black Mountains, so we could just randomly roll. And then we've got another layer we've had it in. So we've had the brigands generated, we've had the dwarves generated. If we come across other intelligent creatures down this dungeon, we might even have an orc tribe with a layer either nearby, or it might even be part of this complex. You never know. It's that type of thing. So yeah, you could say whether this encounter went well or not. I think it went well from the characters, that they've effectively had a way of getting themselves out of this situation. I think they would have probably been able to climb up the chute by themselves anyhow, but they've done it. They've avoided a wandering monster incident that could have been fatal, really. If it had been say they'd come across, you know, 8 goblins, it would be, I can bet your bottom dollar it would have been a very much different outcome, and we wouldn't be having pleasantries at the top of the chute. It would probably be death at the bottom of the chute, in a gory and terrible way, and the goblins would be screaming with glee at the capture of a chaotic neutral blade that they could take off to their chieftain. Whereas, you know, we've got some dwarf buddies now, which is nice. Okay. I think what we'll do is that we've gone through this encounter just now, and I plan to maybe just keep it a wee bit shorter for today, and just have a quick recap. What we've done, we've gone back up onto level 0, We're at the top. We're back onto this staircase. We go through this. We must have to lift this false floor. It's like a staircase, and we managed to scramble onto this staircase again. We get to the bottom, and that's where we're probably going to part with the dwarves. So if we, at the start of next session, we have a conversation with the dwarves and just see how we part. We can summarize some of the information that we've learned about them, but I think maybe that's enough for today. And we can just, I've exposed you maybe to as I say, my final mechanic, the the four option quickie, the 4 option quickie that you can just quickly roll up, well, not roll up, write up, and then roll on very quickly. And it gives you a nice little backstory. Imagine if they'd been something else. They'd been, what else did we have on our list? I keep getting rid of my list. Scouting party exploring for their clan lord and king. Well, I suppose they were adventuring for plunder. It wasn't a million light years away from that. If they were looking for a specific item or artifact, that would have been quite tantalizing, what they were looking for. And then, they could have had this dilemma where they were actually escaped. They were more the victims and people looking for help. And then I was thinking, if it had been lost, stranded, and survivors, maybe some of their retinue were wounded. And then, Dagobert could say, well, I'm a cleric. I can heal some of your party if you don't kill us. And what's happened now is that we've actually managed to negotiate a truce with them. And Dagobert has probably the ability to heal. And I would say that would be the viewpoint of the party. Once the dwarves depart and we start the session next time, Dagobert, one of the first things he's going to do is use his Heal Light Wind spell on Tristan and get Tristan back, or hopefully, fingers crossed, back up to full strength. Okay, right. Well, I quite enjoyed the little interaction. Got a chance to have a bit of a chat to the dwarves. Let's see what our parting terms are next time. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.